Sometimes technology enters a domain where the stakes are no longer numbers, no longer dashboards, but human life itself. And in those spaces, like healthcare, every line of code becomes a pulse, every prediction becomes a breath, and every decision becomes a reflection of trust. AI in healthcare isn't about automation, it's about responsibility, it's about courage. Courage to design systems that will one day guide a doctor's hand, interpret a heartbeat on a screen, whisper an early warning about a patient who is silently deteriorating. When AI enters hospitals, ICUs, radiology labs, emergency rooms, it enters a sacred space where vulnerability lives, where families pray, where seconds decide destinies. And that is why security, integrity, fairness, explainability, human oversight aren't just technical requirements. They are moral commitments, short emotional lift. So today, as we step into day 16 of AISecIntel, we are not just studying AI. We are entering a discipline where cybersecurity meets humanity, where safety becomes compassion, and where trust becomes non-negotiable. Breathe. This journey is more than knowledge. It is an oath to protect every patient whose life may one day depend on the systems we build. Because when AI touches human life, trust is everything. In most industries, AI is a convenience. If it makes a mistake, someone loses time or money or comfort. But in healthcare, a mistake isn't an error. It's an event, a misdiagnosis, a delayed treatment, a missed deterioration, a moment that changes a life forever. Slow, reflective pause. Medical AI is different because its decisions echo inside the human body. A false negative doesn't stay on a model report. It stays inside a patient whose condition silently worsens. And that is why precision is not optional. Transparency is not optional. Accountability is not optional. Healthcare AI must stand on a foundation of clinical validity, not approximations, evidence-based assurance, not assumptions, continuous monitoring, not blind trust, deep emotional cadence. Every doctor, regulator, and patient needs one thing above all: certainty that AI is helping, not harming. Because families don't care about F1 scores or AUC curves, they care about outcomes. They care about safety. They care about hope. Sophisticated models, beautiful dashboards, cutting edge architectures, none of that matters unless it protects human life. And that is why today we learn the principle at the heart of healthcare AI security. The more life critical the system, the more uncompromising the trust. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world where AI sees patterns a human eye cannot, detects risks earlier than any monitor, and helps doctors deliver care with extraordinary precision. This world is not the future. It is happening right now. With every radiology scan, AI becomes a second pair of eyes. With every triage system, AI becomes a guardian of time. With every drug discovery model, AI becomes a catalyst for innovation, slow inspirational rise. In diagnosis, AI uncovers hidden diseases. In imaging, it highlights tumors in places where human fatigue might overlook them. In ICUs, it watches every heartbeat, every breath, predicting deterioration hours before it becomes visible. Emotion. There are moments in medicine when minutes decide survival. Artificial intelligence gives back those minutes. And yet, with this power comes responsibility, because every transformation introduces a risk. Every new capability introduces a new vulnerability. So as AI accelerates healthcare, we must accelerate security, because the systems we build will stand beside doctors, will influence clinical judgment, will help decide who gets urgent care first, will shape the path of healing. This slide is more than a list. It is a reminder of how deeply AI is now woven into the fabric of human care. In healthcare, vulnerabilities don't remain vulnerabilities. They become consequences, they become stories, stories that begin with misdiagnosis, bias, hallucination, drift, and silently grow into avoidable harm, slow and tense. A false negative is not just a number. It is a patient who is sent home too early. It is a mother whose symptoms are dismissed. It is a child whose condition goes undetected. A biased triage system doesn't just make a mistake, it shapes who receives care first and who waits. It decides who is seen and who is overlooked. A hallucinated medical advice from an AI chatbot might feel harmless until someone follows it and delays real care. And model drift isn't a technical issue. It is a silent degradation of accuracy as populations shift, as diseases evolve, as regions differ. In clinical environments, small oversights can expand into system-wide failures. That is why we must approach healthcare AI like a surgeon approaches the operating table, with calm, with precision, with respect for the fragility of human life. Every vulnerability we ignore becomes a risk. Every risk we ignore becomes a story, and every story is a human being. Healthcare AI lives under the strictest regulatory eyes, and rightfully so, because when an algorithm becomes part of a medical device, it becomes part of patient care. Regulators are not slowing innovation, they are protecting the vulnerable. They are ensuring that AI earns the right to operate in clinical environments. Slow, authoritative tone. In the United States, the FDA demands transparency and real-world monitoring. In the EU, MDR and the AI Act treat healthcare AI as high risk because lives depend on it. In India, CDSCO and ICMR enforce clinical validation, cultural context, and population alignment. These frameworks are not obstacles, they are guardrails, keeping AI safe, fair, and clinically meaningful. Deep reflective note. And as creators, auditors, CISOs, and AI security professionals, our responsibility is to ensure AI systems do not simply meet regulation, but exceed it. Because when a device guides a diagnosis, assists a surgery, or monitors a vital organ, it cannot fail, it cannot drift, it cannot guess. Regulatory compliance is not paperwork, it is patient safety written into law. In clinical AI, vulnerabilities are not mere technical flaws, they are silent fractures in the foundation of patient trust. Slow. Imagine a radiological image, just one imperceptible pixel pattern altered, nothing visible to the human eye. But to an AI model, it becomes a completely different reality. A malignant tumor suddenly appears benign. A critical lesion becomes invisible. A patient's life pivots without anyone noticing. Breathe. These are adversarial medical images, proof that even tiny manipulations can mislead powerful systems. But the deeper risks are the ones we cannot see. Hidden biases embedded in decades of clinical records, training data contaminated by subtle noise, miscalibrated confidence scores that make an AI sound sure of itself, even when it is deeply wrong. And in healthcare, misplaced certainty is dangerous because clinicians trust risk scores, nurses trust alerts, patients trust recommendations, and trust, when misplaced, becomes vulnerability. Clinical AI requires more than accuracy. It requires honesty, the ability to say, I am not certain. It requires humility, the ability to let a human override its predictions. And it requires resilience to withstand attacks, noise, drift, and unexpected clinical scenarios. Because the cost of a misclassification isn't a failed recommendation, it is a human life affected in silence. If data is the heartbeat of AI, then in healthcare, data is sacred. Every label, every annotation, every clinical note carries the lived experience of a patient, their pain, their recovery, their fears, their journey. Protecting this data is more than a technical responsibility, it is a moral one. This is why securing medical training data is the foundation of trustworthy AI. Clinical labeling must be validated by medical experts, not assumed correct. De-identification must protect privacy. without destroying clinical meaning. PHI must be safeguarded with encryption, access controls, and complete audit trails. Slow rise. And just as important, training data must represent the world we serve. A diverse population, different geographies, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different genetic profiles, different stories. Because if the data set isn't fair, the AI won't be fair, and if the AI isn't fair, healthcare becomes unequal. Data provenance, integrity, diversity, these are not checkboxes, they are pillars, pillars that carry the weight of patient trust. Bias in healthcare isn't theoretical, it is real, it is historical, and sometimes it is generational. AI systems trained on incomplete or skewed data can silently replicate disparities that disadvantaged communities have faced for decades: underdiagnosis in minority groups, reduced accuracy for women in cardiac predictions, different treatment pathways for similar symptoms. These are not just biases, they are injustices. Fairness in medical AI is the commitment to right those injustices before they harm. Balanced datasets, stratified performance testing, bias correction algorithms, continuous monitoring for disparate impact. These are not technical steps, they are acts of equity. We must test models across every subgroup, not because regulators require it, but because compassion requires it. Because fairness is not a metric, it is dignity, it is humanity. Healthcare AI must not only predict accurately, it must heal fairly. In healthcare, a black box is not acceptable, not for doctors, not for regulators, not for patients, and not for the families who trust the system with someone they love. When an AI provides a diagnostic suggestion, the clinician must understand why, what features mattered, what patterns did it see, what reasoning did it follow. This isn't curiosity, it's clinical necessity, because when AI explains the why, doctors regain control. They can challenge, confirm, interpret, refine. They integrate AI's insights with touch, intuition, experience, and the unique story of each patient, slow, reflective, and patients deserve transparency. When AI influences care decisions, they have a right to know how. Explainability acts as a bridge, connecting machine intelligence with human judgment. It turns mistrust into partnership, confusion into clarity. Soft. A life critical AI that cannot explain itself, cannot be trusted. And healthcare cannot rely on systems that cannot be questioned. The ICU is a world where time moves differently, where machines hum steadily, where loved ones stand quietly, where every beep, every number, every breath matters. Pause. And in this environment, one of the most fragile spaces in medicine, AI becomes both observer and protector. It monitors what humans cannot continuously track: microscopic fluctuations in heart rhythms, subtle shifts in oxygen levels, patterns that whisper the earliest signs of sepsis and signals that warn of a coming cardiac arrest. Rise. AI sees the invisible. It predicts before symptoms appear. It gives clinicians a precious gift: time. But the ICU is also unforgiving. False alarms create fatigue. Missed warnings create tragedy. A model that drifts becomes dangerous, soft, and slow. That is why ICU AI must be monitored with extraordinary vigilance. Every alert evaluated, every algorithm validated, every prediction overseen by a human who understands the patient, the context, the nuances. AI may be powerful, but in critical care, clinicians remain the guardians. And together, human judgment and machine intelligence, they form a partnership that saves lives before danger becomes visible. Telemedicine brought healthcare closer to the world, but AI brought it into the palm of every hand. The promise is beautiful: a parent seeking late night advice for a sick child, an elderly patient asking questions they're too afraid to ask in person, a teenager searching for answers in silence. And in these moments, AI responds with confidence, but confidence is not accuracy. Hallucinations in medical chatbots are not simple mistakes, they are dangerous illusions, A symptom misinterpreted, a medication misexplained, a reassurance given when urgency was needed, voice softens. A patient may delay going to the hospital, a caregiver may follow an incorrect dosage, a person may trust a model more than their own instinct because the answer sounded so certain. And yet, AI does not feel responsibility. It does not feel the weight of its words, but the patient does. Slow, warm tone, warm. This is why telemedicine AI must be designed with humility, not assertiveness, clear disclaimers, escalation pathways to real clinicians, audit logs, continuous validation, safety nets that prevent harm before it reaches the patient. In healthcare, the most dangerous voice is not the one that sounds unsure. It is the one that sounds sure when it is wrong. In the quiet rooms of radiology, AI has become a second set of eyes, tireless, precise, unblinking. It reads CT scans, diagnosing in milliseconds what experts study for minutes. It highlights tumors in places even seasoned radiologists may overlook. It reconstructs images with clarity that was unimaginable a decade ago. Soft heartbeat pacing. But in medical imaging, perfection is the expectation, not the aspiration. Different scanners, different protocols, motion artifacts, rare pathologies. A model trained in one hospital may stumble in another. A model perfect in year one may drift by year three. And segmentation, the art of drawing boundaries around organs and tumors, is not merely a computational task. It is the blueprint for surgeries. It guides radiation beams. It determines treatment plans. Emotion deepens. An inaccurate boundary is not a small error. It is a wrong incision, a missed millimeter, a life impacted. Calm resolve. This is why imaging AI requires constant validation, continuous alignment with the local population, real-time monitoring as scanners evolve, human factors engineering to ensure radiologists never overlook an AI insight or overtrust one. AI in imaging is powerful, but power without vigilance becomes risk. In healthcare, robustness is not nice to have, it is survival. An image slightly perturbed, a waveform slightly distorted, a clinical value slightly shifted, to an unprotected AI model, these can be catastrophic. Because adversarial attacks don't announce themselves, they hide in plain sight. They look normal, harmless, routine. The radiologist sees a tumor. The AI, misled by a few pixels, sees nothing. A diagnosis shifts. A treatment path diverges. A life takes a different turn. Threat modeling, adversarial testing, defensive training, these are more than security steps. They are patient safety protocols. And no single defense is enough. Healthcare requires defense in depth. Input sanitization, certifiably robust models, output validation, human oversight, continuous monitoring for suspicious patterns. Because in healthcare, the question is not, can the model be fooled? It is, what happens when it is? A robust AI model is not one that never fails. It is one that fails safely. In healthcare, data is not just information, it is identity, it is vulnerability. It is a window into a person's most intimate truths. And around this data, the world has built walls. HIPAA in the United States, GDPR in Europe, DPDP Act in India. These laws are more than regulations. They are shields, protecting stories that should never fall into the wrong hands. Soft, empathetic tone. A diagnosis, a genetic marker, a mental health note, a treatment history. These are not fields in a database. They are moments in someone's life. End-to-end encryption, role-based access, breach notification, data minimization, anonymization, privacy-preserving machine learning. These are the safeguards that ensure dignity, slow rise. And when AI enters this space, it must carry the same respect, the same responsibility, the same reverence, because PHI is not just data to protect. It is trust, given by a patient who expects silence, safety, and respect. AI can analyze, AI can predict, AI can suggest, but only humans can care. In healthcare, the physician is not being replaced. They are being supported, strengthened, augmented. Because medicine is not pattern recognition alone, it is empathy, context, nuance, the touch of a hand, the tone of a conversation, the unspoken sense that something is wrong. Soft warmth. AI gives insights, but only a clinician can turn an insight into a healing action. This is the essence of human in the loop design. AI serves, but humans decide. Each step matters. AI provides a prediction. The clinician reviews the evidence. They interpret it through experience. They integrate it with physical examination, and they make the final call. Deep emotional anchor. And in the medical record, the reasoning is documented, not because it is bureaucracy, but because it honors accountability. In the partnership between AI and medicine, machines bring precision, humans bring compassion. Together, they protect life. In healthcare, AI monitoring is not maintenance, it is vigilance, it is guardianship. These systems don't simply process data, they influence care decisions, they shape clinical perceptions, they impact survival, which means Eve's slow, steady tone. Model drift is not a theoretical concept here, it is a shadow that creeps slowly, quietly, as patient populations change, as new diseases appear, as hospital equipment evolves, as clinical workflows shift. A model can be perfect on day one and silently unsafe by day 300. This is why we monitor not just accuracy, but behavior, confidence levels, input patterns, anomalies, unexpected correlations, unusual override spikes, different outcomes for different groups. These signals whisper when something is wrong. Soft emotional depth. And when AI encounters a patient it has never seen before, it must have the humility to raise a flag to say, this case is unfamiliar. A human must decide. Slow, warm, close. In healthcare, continuous monitoring is a form of respect. Respect for complexity, respect for uncertainty, respect for life. Governance is not bureaucracy, it is the architecture of trust. In healthcare, AI governance exists because innovation without oversight is risk, and oversight without expertise is noise. So hospitals build something powerful: cross-functional governance committees, clinicians, data scientists, ethicists, legal officers, security leaders, compliance experts, all sitting at the same table, ensuring AI serves medicine, not disrupts it. Slow, deliberate pacing. Every AI project begins with a clinical justification, not a technology pitch, a patient need. Every model undergoes risk assessment, ethical review, technical validation, clinical trials, regulatory compliance checks. And deployment only happens when every expert agrees. This system will make care safer. Pause, gentle tension, release. This is the spirit of ISO 42001, a world-first standard that helps organizations manage AI responsibly. Governance is not about slowing innovation, it is about preventing harm. When governance works, hospitals transform. AI becomes an ally. Clinicians become empowered, patients become safer, and trust becomes the default. There are stories in healthcare AI that remind us not of what technology can do, but of what happens when it fails. A large regional hospital deployed an AI triage system. It was built on data from a different region, a different population, with different disease patterns, different genetic backgrounds. And the system, quietly, consistently, underestimated severity for minority patients. Soft, somber tone. People waited longer than they should have. Symptoms were dismissed. Early signs of danger were missed. And because monitoring was weak, because escalation paths were unclear, because concerns were unheard. Months passed. Patients suffered. Slow breath. When the truth emerged, the consequences were devastating. Regulatory investigations, malpractice lawsuits, penalties. loss of trust. But the greatest cost was human. Pause. Deep emotion. This case is not about blame, it is about awakening. It teaches us that AI safety is not optional. It is the lifeline that protects those who cannot protect themselves. Governance, fairness testing, bias monitoring, clinician override, these are not technical tasks, they are safeguards for human dignity. Because in healthcare, one mistake is not a metric, it is a memory. Today's deliverable is more than a checklist, it is a framework for responsibility. A roadmap for hospitals, regulators, CISOs, AI teams, and innovators to ensure every healthcare AI system entering the real world is safe, ethical, fair, secure, and clinically validated. Soft, inspiring lift. This checklist carries 10 pillars: risk assessments, clinical validations, bias testing, PHI protection, governance structures, monitoring protocols, regulatory compliance, human-in-the-loop integration, incident response, continuous improvement. These are not just steps in a process, they are commitments. When organizations follow this framework, they don't just deploy AI, they deploy trust, they deploy safety, they deploy dignity. Use this checklist as a foundation, a blueprint for building healthcare AI systems worthy of the lives they touch. And now, as we close day 16, we return to the heart of healthcare AI. When AI touches human life, trust becomes the air it breathes. Because hospitals aren't technology laboratories, they are sacred spaces where people arrive frightened, hopeful, vulnerable, and place their lives in the hands of a system they do not fully understand. Our mission is simple and profound: to build AI that earns that trust, AI that sees fairly, AI that speaks truthfully, AI that defends privacy, AI that knows its limits, artificial intelligence that supports the healer, not replaces them, and above all, artificial intelligence that keeps patient safety as its highest purpose. The future of healthcare will not be shaped by algorithms alone, but by the intentions behind them, by the governance beside them, by the humans who guide them. And if we do this right, AI will not just transform healthcare, it will honor it. Thank you for being here, for learning, for leading, and for carrying this responsibility forward. Tomorrow, we enter a new chapter: AI in financial services, securing algorithmic trading and fraud detection systems. Until then, remember, in healthcare, as in life, trust is not given, it is earned.